About a year ago, I replaced the thermal pads on my EVGA 3090 graphics card. The 3090s are known for having poor thermal pads coming out of the factory. And for gaming and at the time mining, I was losing a lot of performance. So I built this outline for this video, and I kind of want to just go through it to help you get a gist of how this may benefit you. So pretty straightforward introduction. It's pretty much what I was just getting at. Warranty. If you do this, you're going to void your warranty. There's a sticker covering a screw, and once you take that sticker off, you can't really put it back on. What you'll need, you're going to want a clean environment, anti-static, grounded environment, just some sort of place and some sort of clothing where you're not going to jeopardize the electronics. Anti-static grounding tools. I'm going to add this document to the description of the video. So these are all links, and these links will take you to Amazon, and you could purchase these things. I got the tools for like 30 bucks, and they come with a bunch of other useful tools. The thermal paste, you use this for your CPU and other various components of a computer. You'll need this for the GPU die, and then 3 sets of different size thermal pads. I'm going with the brand Thermalright, and we're going to go with some 1mm, 2mm, and 2.5mm. And I didn't actually figure these heights out myself. I found an EVGA 3090 forum, and there was a user named Dracor, and he's the one that actually pulled out a caliper. I quoted him. I'll just read what he actually typed. I pulled out my caliper and tried to measure the pads. Please note that these are just close estimates. The pads are quite soft and likely get squashed and result in thinner than expected values. If I were to replace the thermal pads, I would probably try rounding up the values as closely as possible. Measured 1.8mm, replaced with 2.0mm pad. And then I stole his images, and I just labeled them image 1 and image 2. So for example, you'll see here, image 1, this references the back plate memory, and he says that he did 2mm pads here. So if you look at image 1 right here, you'll see all of these are measured at 1.88. I don't know why they're different colors, but they're all 1.88. And I followed his instructions, and they fit perfectly. And then the other ones are all in reference to image 2. So there's some paste areas, which I guess were pretty thin. They were pretty thin. So you'll do a 1mm pad there. And then for the VRAM areas, 2.5, and for the GPU die memory surrounding the die, 2.0. And if you scroll down, you'll see that. So in the center here, you'll be putting thermal paste, but in the surrounding areas, these were 2.0s, and then on the outsides were 2.5s, I believe. So yeah, basically I just, without his measurements, it would be pretty difficult to do this. And let me just show you some before and afters really quick. So the before shots, you'll see on average, we were at 106 degrees, or 105.2 degrees Celsius. And in terms of mining performance, we were under 100 megahashes, or under 100 megahash. This card is rated to be, in best case scenario, 120 megahash. So my goal was to get the temperatures down and increase performance to at least 110 or above. And I don't mine on this card anymore, but when I did actually see improvement. So I'll scroll down, and you'll see that my temperature went from 105 on average to down to 96, which is awesome. And our hash rate, megahash, was now at 116, which is great. It pretty much never dipped below 110. And in the before screenshot here, we ran for a minute, and it got up to those temperatures. And then in my after screenshot, I ran for 12 hours, and you'll see mining uptime, 11 hours, 58 minutes. It held these temperatures strong and steady. So being on 100 degrees Celsius on your memory junction, that's pretty awesome. And then another indicator for whether we installed the pads properly or not, you want to check your delta, your difference between your hotspot temperature and your normal temperature. So if you just subtract 62.6, or sorry, if we do the average, 63.2 minus 49.1, as long as we're under 15 degrees Celsius, I think that indicates a pretty good, a job well done. And then for gaming, I was running Elden Ring max settings with ray tracing for 40 minutes, and on average, this is the temperatures it held at. These are really healthy temperatures. You pretty much don't have to worry about anything in terms of gaming for hours on end once you replace your thermal pads. I would say even with the old thermal pads, gaming wasn't too bad, but you know, the colder the better, and it's just healthier for the card to run colder. So yeah, let me show you the form real quick where I found Dracor, because he's a godsend. Okay, so here's an EVGA form. As I scroll down, I was reading through all these, and everyone was pretty confused in terms of thermal pad heights and measurements until I found this one, post number 10 by Dracor. And you see he's a new member on this site. He doesn't really post a lot, so 18 posts. This was one of his beautiful posts. And I, stole his exact words for my Google Drive doc just for reference, and his 2 images. And you'll see at the bottom, he actually added those specific areas and the heights he used for those areas on the graphics card. So yeah, I'll just let the video play. Let's get into it. I'll pop in and out during the video. I'll probably pause it just so I can comment here and there, little tips or tricks on what I was doing in the moment. I didn't voice over the video at the time because I never did this before. So I didn't want to ruin my graphics card and be focused on 2 different things at once. So yeah, let's play the video. So first off, I want to apologize for the bad camera angles. I've never filmed something like this. I should have been a little more bird's eye, but that's okay. We're first of all taking off the back plate, and there's 2 screws with nuts on the other ends. So I use some anti-static tweezers to get those little nuts off while I unscrew the other side. In some cases I'll point and be specific, but sometimes while I was filming this, I kind of was just taking the card apart. This is my first time ever even taking a graphics card apart like this. So now I'm trying to see if I can wiggle off the back plate, but you'll notice there's like a little EVGA sticker towards my left hand, and that's where you'll void your warranty. So I'll realize and I'll take that off. You don't have to unplug these to get the backplate off, but I just decided to unplug them here. Also, I apologize for the length of this video. I've seen some people make quicker ones in stop motion format or quicker jumps, but I kind of wanted to feel like I was taking apart my card while you were taking apart your card. That way there wasn't, I guess, so much pausing and playing and rewinding. And when you pull off this back plate, try to be really delicate. Wiggle it side to side a little bit. Don't pull up. Pulling up, you could risk bending or cracking your plate. You'll see I pull up there. But yeah, and then you'll see I start to kind of wiggle side to side. And there you go. It comes right up. And as far as cleaning goes, for getting off the residue from the old thermal pads, try to get over 90% isopropyl alcohol. I had 70 and it just doesn't get the job done, so I went out and bought 90. And 90 was a lot more effective. And I'm not sure if there's really a right or wrong way to get the old thermal pads off. I just used my little anti-static tweezers to kind of get the chunks off. And then the residue I scraped off with my little plastic. This tool's actually for unplugging wires, but I kind of used it to scrape off that extra layer of thermal pad residue. Oh yeah, there you go. And again, not sure the proper tool for this. I just used Q-tips. I'm sure they could actually create a static charge, but I got lucky. My graphics card has no issues, and it's been over a year now since I did this. And just dip a little bit of alcohol. Don't drench the cotton ball, and don't drench the Q-tip. Whatever you end up using, don't drench it with alcohol. Just you know, just get it a little wet. And when you're unscrewing this part, do it in a star pattern and only unscrew like a little bit out of a time. If you ever like unscrew the lugs on a car or tightened, you do it in a star pattern. You don't just tighten one all the way or loosen one all the way. Do it in a star pattern. This thing's got a lot of tension on it. You'll see when it releases. Doing the star pattern essentially alleviates stress from being all in one area, distributes. You definitely don't need to take this part off. I did this myself because I wasn't sure if it was holding the card onto the heat sinks or not, but I did it anyway. And you could do it as well. It might just make it a little easier. And again, don't pull up on this part, wiggle. And you're gonna notice there's a cable. Once you get this thing apart, you might be able to unplug it while it's together still. But when you pull it apart, don't pull it apart like aggressively. Look for that cable and unplug that. You'll see me do it. I do it after I get the card detached from the heatsink. There's that little wire. You see that? The middle left of the screen. It's black. I'm unplugging it right now. There we go. All in all, this entire job took probably about 3 hours. I think there's about 3 hours of filming, and I condensed it down to about 25 minutes. I felt like that was reasonable. I wanted to provide as much like detail as I was doing this as possible. Ooh, shiny. I'm really bad with component names, so ignore me if I call things the wrong thing, but the piece is labeled LR22, those gray rectangles. Those are really easy to clean off. And then you'll see I'm cleaning these tiny little black squares off. These were a pain in the ass. If you get the gist of what needs to be cleaned, feel free to skip ahead. I just wanted to leave some of these details in there so you see like one by one what I'm cleaning and what I'm not. But again, more of those black squares on the left side of the card as well. Pain in the ass. So now you'll see I already put 2 pads down on the top and bottom of the GPU die, but this is kind of how I measured things off. I just used like an X-Acto blade and put a little perforation in the thermal pad. On the top of the thermal pads, there's a clear plastic. So when you see me pressing down, I'm not touching the actual thermal pad, I'm touching plastic. And then below is like this blue film, and the blue film is the side that I put down on the graphics card. So eventually I will take off that plastic film on top once I'm ready to put the card back together. And definitely reference my Google Drive doc when you're putting the pads on for the correct measurements. You know, the images from Dracor, they're there for help. Ooh, ah. I'm just going to point out with my tweezers where I put pads on. And pretty much the ones that I'm touching at the same time are the ones that are the same measurements. And now I apply the thermal paste onto the GPU die in the center. And I have this little like anti-static, smear tool, and I have my little syringe of thermal paste. Just give it a nice layer, a nice coat, spread it all around. And then I'm gonna put the card back together to make sure that that the thermal paste is making contact with the heatsink. Definitely don't overdo it with the thermal paste. It'll smear across the sides and it'll be really messy. You probably won't have to do, as long as you give it a nice generous coat without it being too much, you probably won't have to do this ever again. Especially if you're only gaming. So the thermal pads still have the plastic film on them. That way it doesn't get stuck when I'm putting this back together. Again, right now what I'm trying to do is just make sure the thermal paste is making contact with the heatsink of the GPU. And when you tighten this back down, remember star pattern. Few turns at a time. Jump screw to screw until it feels nice and tight. And don't over tighten. Tighten until you pretty much feel like you would have to like force yourself to tighten more. Just snug. There are special tools where you probably can like measure the torque in terms of like how tight the screw is as you screw, but I don't want to spend money on that. Okay, now I'm taking it back apart and we'll see if contact was made. And you'll see it's pretty much a good square on the heatsink. There you go. And now I'm going to remove the film. There's a real light plastic film on top of the thermal pads. You probably don't want to touch the thermal pads bare with your skin. Like you might get oil from your fingers on there, so that's why I'm using the tweezers to kind of keep it down. And make sure you get all of them. Don't forget one. That probably wouldn't be good. You'll see I use my finger there to fix it. Don't do that. I would say the cleaning is probably the worst part of this entire process. That's what took the most time. I just wanted to make sure I was like cleaning it as best as I could. But getting the thermal pads cut, measured, and put on, not bad at all. And if you've done thermal paste on a CPU, it's extremely similar to how you're doing it in this case. Make sure you plug everything in. Remember, there were 4 cables we had. The one connected from the underside, and then these 3 here, the black, the tan, and the blue. Again, apologies for the bad camera angles. If I ever do this again, I'll do a much better job. Star pattern when tightening. And now only 4 more pads to go. And do not over tighten. If you're wondering what I just did with that plastic piece, I was concerned I almost stripped the screw. So I screwed it in with the plastic between to kind of fill in that screw while I was screwing it in. You could do it with a rubber band too. It's little tricks, so you don't strip your screws. I even ended up changing my Phillips head there. And it looks like I pre-measured all those and just had them ready. And then don't forget your plastic film again. And now we're going to put the back plate back on. And in terms of putting the screws in here, again, just don't over tighten them one at a time. Like, just like, you know, put them in and then go back around and tighten them again. And now these are the two screws that require the nut on the other side. My dumbass dropped it. Here's the warranty sticker screw. And the last screw with the last nut. Thank you for watching. I don't mind doing another type of card in the future. I do own like various different cards because I was mining a little bit. I have 2 rigs in my basement. So if anyone's interested in like 3060s, 3060 Ti, 3080, 3080 Ti, 3070s, I wouldn't mind making a thermal pad replacement video on those as well. But I'm not going to make this outro long. Thank you. Have a great day, guys.